НАТО отмечает 75-летие Альянса. Союзники заявляют, что столкнулись с крупнейшим кризисом безопасности на Западе со времен Второй мировой войны. На юбилейном саммите в Вашингтоне лидеры 32 стран НАТО должны утвердить инициативы, касающиеся усиления обороны всех членов Альянса в свете угроз со стороны России, Китая, КНДР и Ирана. Также ожидаются заявления о выделении финансовой и военной помощи Украине. По словам Иво Даалдера, бывшего постпреда США в НАТО, и Альянс, и Украина должны сделать больше, чтобы положить конец войне.
What Ukraine needs to do is to mobilize manpower. This is a war being fought by 40-year-olds. No other war in history has been fought by 40-year-olds. It's time that Ukraine really have a serious conversation about how important is this war and succeeding in this war to them. You can't do that just with 28, 29, and 30-year-olds, let alone 40-year-olds, which is the average age of the people on the front line. You need to get 18-year-olds, and you need to get 20-year-olds, and you need to get 21-year-olds, which is what every army in the rest of the world relies on.
What about, for example, Emmanuel Macron's premise that perhaps some NATO countries should send troops into Ukraine?
I think there may come a day where that is necessary, but you can't do that when you're not mobilizing your 18 to 27-year-olds. It's very hard to ask a mother or a father, a husband or a wife, a sister or a brother to send their sons and sisters and daughters to war to fight in a country which is not willing to mobilize its own people under the age of 25. And so more needs to be done by the Ukrainians. It's no doubt that that is part of the solution. You need more people on the front lines. There needs to be more weapons. There needs to be an end to the caveats. There needs to we need to prioritize the defense of Ukraine in a way that we haven't, and that includes the United States as part of it. It's only recently we found all these Patriot systems. Why not 6 months earlier? This summit should be about the reality that this is an existential moment, not just for Ukraine, but for NATO. For NATO to exist next year and the year after, Ukraine must succeed. Russia must fail in Ukraine.
Well, one of the messages from this summit is about unity within NATO, but you have the Prime Minister of Hungary, who holds the rotating presidency of the European Council, visiting Moscow and often repeating Kremlin lines about the war in Ukraine. What impact does that have?
Orban is too small and too insignificant to be a real threat to Western security. He's been at this for a good 2+ years now. And I think the only good thing that came out of this is that Viktor Orban must have been listening to Vladimir Putin, who was standing next to him at the press conference and said, there's not going to be a ceasefire. There's not going to be an end to this war unless and until we get all the territory that we demand. And I hope that one of the things Viktor Orban took away is to understand that this war has an originator that is in Moscow, not in Brussels, not in Washington, certainly not in Kyiv. And that if we are going to end this war, it has to be done by convincing Russia to stop fighting.